What's good, folks? It's KnightmareFrame and it's time to break the game. For those who don't know, Octavia is the best utility frame in the game. Various buffs from increased damage all the way to invisibility. That makes her one of the best endgame frames all round, and a literal powerhouse if played right. But there are people who don't like her because of the tactical crouching. Let's go through her abilities so you get a general idea of how she works. She's a very unique frame that revolves around music. Your abilities, potency, and efficiency are affected by the tempo of your mana chord. Her instrument. Her first ability, Mallet, is her damaging ability. She deploys a pulsating ball that is in tune with the percussion section of the mana chord. This ability attracts enemies to attack it. The mallet then absorbs and reflects damage back to the enemies. This damage scales with power strength and the enemy's damage output. Her second ability, Resonator. She launches a roller ball that increases aggro. It's influenced by the base section of your mana chord. It can also be combined with your mallet to make it into a mobile turret. Very useful to increase the range of your mallet, and if it's alone, it pacifies enemies within range and deals blast damage per beat. A very high aggro ability. Her third ability, pretty much everyone's favorite, Metronome. This is what makes Octavia the unique frame that she is. The metronome syncs up to the melody part of your mana chord. Metronome grants buffs depending on the action that you execute in sync to the melody. So buffs such as invisibility, multi-shot, melee damage, and movement speed. From just activating your third ability, you gain an armor buff. By tactical crouching, aka teabagging, you gain invisibility. From shooting, you gain increased multi-shot, and finally, all forms of jumping gives you increased movement speed. All these buffs are refreshable, and even if Metronome runs out, the buff remains with their own separate timer. And each of these buffs have their own unique icon, which can clutter your buff UI because there's just so many of them. And finally, Amp, her fourth ability, which is basically an overall damage increase, all depending on the noise you make. So shooting, jumping, alarms, and especially Octavia's other abilities, they all trigger the Amp bonuses. Amp gives additive weapon damage increase, and Amp is also used to increase the range and the damage of your mallets. And the best thing about Octavia's abilities is that they're all recastable. You don't have to wait for the duration to run out. All her abilities scale from power strength, range, and duration, and casting speed mods like Natural Talent make them a lot smoother to use. Alright, let's get on to the builds, bringing you 4 builds on one Octavia. But first, let's start off with the mana chord. Okay, moving on to the Endurance Runner build. Just remember that an Endurance build will be tailored to the player and what they find efficient. Just like most builds, I have Speed Holster in the aura for that 120% weapon holster rate, allowing me to switch between weapons faster. Vigilante Pursuit for the 30-meter enemy radar, a consistent enemy radar useful to spot enemies and help with enemy pathing. My duration is at 282% with the use of Narrow-Minded, Prime Continuity, and Constitution. This grants me 56 seconds on Mallet, Resonator, and Metronome, along with a 42 seconds duration on Metronome's various buffs, and 84 seconds on Amp. I avoid using Resonator when doing endurance runs, as you usually camp a spot and getting close to your mallet could get you killed, as you'll be caught in the crossfire. To balance out the range, I will run Stretch. You don't want massive range when doing endurance runs with Octavia, especially if you're solo. You want to control a section and have space to move around so you can pick up loot and activate life support without getting shot. Power Strength at 168%, this grants Mallet a 4.2 times damage multiplier. and I get a 3.36 damage multiplier from Amp. This power is more than enough, as the more damage goes into Mallet, the more it dishes out. Of course, higher power strength gives you more reflected damage, but that won't matter if you strip armor. Flow for the large energy pool so you can cast all your abilities with ease. You can even replace this with Streamline, it's up to you. Rolling Guard is a godsend to all stealth frames. This is helpful when you take toxin damage procs, as it removes status effects and makes you invulnerable after a dodge roll. And to add up on that, I have arcane resistance. But let's be honest, this build really doesn't need arcanes, but having them makes it a lot easier. Now for those who want to enjoy Octavia in all other game modes, I will provide you with an all-rounder build. A build for pretty much any content. A balanced build with more range and defenses. Corrosive projection in the aura for that 30% armor strip. Pursuit for the enemy radar, you can replace this with rush if needed. Power strength at 155% with the 2 Umbral mods. Duration at 207%, balancing out all abilities, perfect for quick missions. 145% range, great for the abilities to reach out and deal damage to all enemies while moving, and enough range for your allies to get around you to buff themselves. Streamlined for the efficiency, reducing the cost of the abilities. It's a simple and straightforward setup, and also lenient to the player. Rolling Guard can be replaced with any other mod of your choice, but for me, it's a lifesaver. Alright, now we get to the juicy and fun stuff. Eidolon hunting. Yes, I know, it's not everyone's favorite game mode, but it is the most prosperous and our most sustainable content for so many years. If you want to learn more on Eidolon Hunts, do check out my Eidolon Hunting Guide series, where I go over everything in detail, from focus, amps, rolls, builds, positioning, etc. Everything you need to know to get you started. I'll be mostly using her 4th ability, Amp, as a damage multiplier. This ability is perfect to boost weapon damage. So if anything makes noise, it will build up this ability's damage boosting properties. Since we're hunting Eidolons, everything will trigger this ability's buff. Along with Amp, I will also use a Metronome, the 3rd ability. Since this is an Eidolon build, naturally the one we lead towards to is the multi-shot buff, known as Opera. You get this buff by shooting to the pulsating tempo of your Metronome. And it's always best to have a nice, fast tempo, because you don't want to waste time to sync your movements and actions to a beat, but rather just go ham. Multi-shot and fire rate are helpful to build up your sniper combo counter, which in turn allows you to dish out even more damage. Taking a look at the build, I have Sprint Boost in the aura. This is the meta aura for Eidolons currently, helping you move faster across the planes due to the Arcwing changes. Power strength at 278% with the use of the 2 Umbral mods, Blind Rage and Augur Secrets. This gives me a 5.56 times damage multiplier. That's 556 damage increase. Think of this like another stronger version of Serration being added to your sniper. Also, we get 83.4% multi-shot increase with Metronome. Duration at 128% with the use of Constitution. This gives me 19 seconds of the multi-shot buff that can be easily refreshed. Since the hunts are not long, the buff duration is more than enough. I also gain 38 seconds on my amp boost. Using stretch, I get 20 meters on my amp. If you control the Eidolon's position, you won't have to recast this buff as much. Handspring for the 160% knockdown recovery, and adaptation is just there as a bonus defensive mod. Arcade momentum for the increased reload speed and acceleration for the fire rate. The go-to Idolan hunting arcanes for the Synovia DPS. And remember, if you want to know more about Idolan hunts, do check out my Idolan Hunting Guide series. And the final build is my spy setup. The speed setup with max duration, all the movement speed mods and duration mods all in one build. There's no power strength or efficiency. This is a solo setup, so range does not matter, and you will most likely use just one ability, and that will be Metronome. This will grant you 45 seconds of invisibility and speed that can be refreshed as you move. Rolling Guard is there just for the added safety feature, especially if you run through traps that might damage you, or being around toxic Xmas units. Of course, you you can add up to that speed by using Amalgam Serration and Dispatch Overdrive on your weapons. And that's it, peeps, my new and improved Octavia, all in one devastating little package. Alright, that has been it from me. I do hope you've enjoyed and learned something from this video, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Warframe content, streams, and so much more. Do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace.